Right, welcome to Lesson 2 on intervals. Last year we did a very brief introduction with intervals in your theory course, just introducing what intervals are, how to calculate their size, and basically the difference between a harmonic interval and a melodic interval. So we're going to do a quick review of that and carry on as well. All right, so an interval is the distance between any two notes. And we learned the names of the intervals by number. Now remember, when you're counting intervals by number, you always use the bottom number as note number 1. So as a quick example in here, we're gonna jump in and see that this is an interval of a first. Oops, I'm gonna grab my pen here, or grab my laser beam pointer. Interval of a first because we haven't moved. Note 1 is note 1, same thing. Here, this is an interval of a second, even though we've only moved one step from a line to a space. This is still an interval of a second because we count that bottom note as note number 1. Number 1, 2. Same thing goes for here. C, D, E, count note 1, note 2, note 3. All right, the same process goes all the way across until we get the octave. The interval of the octave, which is right here. Okay, 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C is 8. So that's how we count our numbers. Intervals can also have a classification. Now this is what the new stuff is. Intervals can have a classification which describes them more accurately. There are different kinds of seconds. There are different kinds of thirds and fifths and all the way across. So how do you calculate what those are? Here's where we're going to start, basically, doing with the first calculation and the first type of interval, the first classification. So here's the first thing to remember. The intervals of a unison, fourth, fifth, or octave can be described as perfect intervals. Right? So we can have a perfect unison, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, and perfect octave. We'll get into why it's just these intervals later. Okay, don't worry about why it is that these ones and not other ones. But just try and commit it to memory as quick as you can that the intervals of size 1, 4, 5, and 8 are perfect intervals. Right? They can be labeled as P1, P4, P5, and P8, of course, respectively. All right, so your little task is to draw the interval of a perfect fifth above these notes. We'll do the first two for you. We'll do the first two with you. Okay. So when I count, I need to count the interval of a fifth above this bottom note. Remember, I always count this note as 1. So 1, 2 is the line, 3 would be on the space, 4 on the line, 5 on the space. Right there on that second space, that A space, that is the distance of a fifth above my bottom note. Okay. Now a perfect fifth above the note E would be 5 steps up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This time my answer is on the line. There. Okay, so I've got a fifth here and a fifth there, and I can just carry on counting that interval of a perfect fifth above these notes. Okay. Now, draw the interval of a perfect octave above the next notes. Well, that's easy to do, right? I'll do the first one for you just because, to make it obvious. A perfect octave is just the same letter name, one octave away. Or, again, if I want to count 8, I can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C on that third space is an eighth, or an octave. Whether you say perfect eighth or perfect octave, same thing. Okay? All right. Now you're going to name these intervals by number and classification. We've only introduced you to perfect ones, fours, fives, and eights. So that's the only kind of intervals you can have here. 1s, 4s, 5s, or 8s. So they should be pretty obvious which one is which. Okay. Now, and then finally complete the sentence. The intervals of a blank, 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 and blank are described as perfect intervals. That should be glaringly obvious. Let's carry on to the next page when you're done. All right, on this page, we're going to look briefly at perfect fifths specifically. Now, a perfect fifth, as it says here, consists of 7 half steps. A perfect fifth must contain exactly 7 half steps. One way to find out is one way to find a perfect fifth is to count 7 half steps up or down on a piano keyboard. So, the example here, let's say you were on the note C, and I need to know what is a perfect fifth above C. Okay, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I land on the note G. I know that G is exactly a perfect fifth. Now you might be asking yourself, I just did perfect fifths on the previous page. I count up the 5 steps. I just did them. What's with this 7 half steps? Not every fifth is a perfect fifth. If you start on any, you're not going to start on any white key, count up the 5 steps, and land exactly 7 half steps away. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. So, quickly on your own, you can finish up these questions. Okay, don't just count 5 steps, count exactly 7 half steps. And you'll see what I mean in here somewhere about why it's not always just 5 easy steps. Sometimes you might need to use a sharp, okay, or a flat note in order to get that distance. Why don't we do 1 or 2 together just to see, so you can see the routine and how it works. All right, so what first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the next question. What note is a perfect fifth above G? Well, I'm going to go to my keyboard because again, it's my answer key for pretty much every theory question I'm really going to have. Okay, so I'm going to find the note G. That happens to be right here. Okay, the note G. If I have to count up a perfect fifth, I know that the fifth will be a D because here's G. So G, D, E, sorry, G, A, G, A, B, C, D. That's 5, right? If I'm thinking about on the staff, there's note 1, the bottom note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I land on the note D. So D has to be my answer, right? Well, not necessarily. I have to make sure that since here was my landing note, there's my starting note, and there's my landing note, I got to make sure that that is exactly 7 half steps. Is it? Let's see. I travel 1 half step, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That is, in fact, a D natural is a perfect fifth. Okay. Let me do one that might not be exactly right. Let's go with this one. What note is a perfect fifth below F? Okay, now we have a new question here. Here's my note F on the keyboard, right? Way over here. And now I need to count down a perfect fifth below F. First thing I can do is get my letter name. I'll just count down that fifth. So F, E, D, C, B, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B is my answer. So I'm going to write a B. Perfect fifth below F is a B. Am I done? Not necessarily. I have to check. I'm going to first mark down the B key as my answer. Whoops, with red. Okay. And now I'm going to actually count those half steps. Do I have 7 half steps between my beginning note and my answer? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Notice that with 7 half steps, I land on this black key, not the white key. So my answer, in fact, is not B, but B flat. I need to put a flat sign here. A perfect fifth below F is not B, but B flat. That's the importance of having the 7 half step rule. So you can count your 5 notes, count your 5 letter names, whatever you want to, however you want to think about it, but always make sure that you count exactly 7 half steps when you need to go a perfect fifth. So with that information, you can certainly do the rest of these, and you can carry on with the next activities here. Draw perfect fifths above these notes. That's fine. It's essentially the same thing as what you did up here, but on the staff instead. Circle the interval below which is not a perfect fifth. One of these is a culprit. Okay, find the guilty party in here. And then finally at the bottom, circle the 5 melodic perfect fifths in this melody. The first one has been done for you. So the first thing I'd recommend is look at all the distances, see where you have fifths, okay, and then investigate as to whether or not you have exactly 7 half steps. They say the first one's done for you, so they circled this one, excuse me, as being a perfect fifth. So that's the first one. The next one, D to C, is that a perfect fifth? Well, it's not even close to being a fifth, so don't even worry about it. C to B is not, B to A is only 1 step away. A to, no, not at all. G, way down to low G, well, that's way too big. Here you have a fifth. Okay, is that a perfect fifth? Well, count your 7 half steps. See if that is 7 half steps, and if it is, perfect. Perfect, unintentional, I know. Anyway, carry on, find all the perfect fifths. Melodic, the word melodic basically means it's one note after the other. Bum, ba, as opposed to both notes happening at the same time. This is a simple little melody, so what you will find are melodic intervals, as opposed to harmonic intervals. Melodic intervals means you have one note after the other. Harmonic means the notes happen at the same time. So don't even worry about the word melodic. It just means one after the other. So find the perfect fifths in this melody. Find out as many as you can. And that's our lesson for today.